So check it out. This is my truck walk around. This is probably the last time you guys are gonna see this truck this way, because I just bought a new truck. It's a double cab 2015. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch all the parts from this truck and move it over there, and then that one over to here. So this is gonna be restored back to OEM, and then I'm gonna sell this truck. But I'm going to chop the frame on this truck so that it's 12 inches shorter, and it has this 5.5 foot bed on it. So that's my next project. But you know, it'll still have the same parts. So let's get started. I've got these DeMello rock sliders right here, and they're bent up slightly right there and right there because, you know, the weight of the truck landing on rocks and shit. But they are pretty decent sliders. These are Mickey Thompson Baja Pro XS 40s on 17s. Currently on these Methods 17 by 8.5, 0 offset. I like Methods, I just don't like these ones. Like these Apex valves, you know, I get the air down really quickly, but look how much they stick out. I mean, look at that shit. You know, that's why I smashed it on a rock, right? Because the rock came in and just tore that motherfucker off. Take off this cap. Pull this lever here and so I've got this DeMello front bumper. It's actually pretty badass. At first I was worried that, you know, they were only using 1/8 inch steel on this, but then if you look inside here, it is ribbed. You know, there's all this support, and that keeps this bumper pretty rigid. So I've slammed on this thing a bunch of times. It's got good clearance. Look at that. You know, my approach angle for a Tundra is not too bad. I mean, could be better, but you know, look at all this space right here that helps me clear my 40s. Look at that, tons of space. This would be considered my approach angle here, but since my truck is so high that a lot of the rocks and shit that I come up against actually fit under here, right? So I'm able to, you know, put obstacles right on there because this bumper is so high up. That's what I like about it. I actually like having these shackles here because they actually protect the bumper. Because you know, when I slide down or go up an obstacle, this takes the brunt of the hit damage. I've got a worn 12K platinum winch, which I hate because it's fucking wireless and it doesn't free spool anymore. So actually that stopped doing that a long time ago. Piece of shit. I got some cheap LED bars that I got on Amazon. They work, they've been there for years, and so I've got them in here too. There's no need for me to spend all that money on lights, although I did get these ones here. So I have a 7-inch BDS lift. This is the drop bracket right there. It came with a Fox 2.5-inch coilovers, remote reservoir. It's got 700-pound springs. No, make that, they're 750-pound springs. And then the spindle right there. And that's about the only thing that remains from that BDS lift. Everything else I've changed out. So I still have the stock steering rack. People have asked, you know, how many times I've replaced it. I mean, I've only replaced it once, and that's because the truck rolled over, right? But other than that, I mean, these steering racks are pretty strong. I've got Coast Builder tie rod ends, and then I've got J-Perf inner tie rods that are chromoly. Don't think it really makes that much of a difference. I was rolling on these OEM inner tie rods for many years and never had a problem. I've got the CV axles, RCV axles here. These are worth the money. I mean, $2,000 for a set. The only problems I have with these is that they tend to leak. But as of late, RCV has been putting some sort of sealant on the inner part of the boot, and then they clamp it down. Right? So it's been holding pretty well, actually. So I might start doing that with all of my boots, because I service my CV boots myself. Actually, I do most of the work myself. Here you've got the Total Chaos lower control arms. These are stock length. People always ask me, why did I get a stock length lower control arm instead of long travel? Well, long travel has, I don't want long travel. I'm already wide as it is. I'm trying to squeeze in through trails, and on the Rubicon, I barely fit. If I'm sticking out, 2 more inches here, 2 more inches there, 4 inches total wider, there's no way I'm gonna fit. But I got these Total Chaos lower control arms because of the bushings. They're much more stiff. And then these Campbells, I forgot where I got them from, but they help lock it in place so they don't move around. These stock lower control arms, here's my old ones that I got. They have soft rubber bushings inside, and it's easy for it to just move around, and it doesn't take much. You hit a rock and it just it'll move it around, knock your alignment off. I actually learned how to do alignments on my driveway because I had to do them all the time, so got tired of doing that. It's not an easy, quick job to do, so that's why I forked out the money for these, and I haven't had to do an alignment in a long time. Here's my drop bracket, my BDS drop bracket, and so here you can see that there's this extra piece of metal that was welded on so that it would protect the cam bolts. I mean, look at it. It's got this big old dent in here, and it did its job. It took the hit rather than the bolt. Right? So I did on this side as well. Here's a rear view of my front diff. So here's the drop bracket right here that I've built up as well, like I did in the front. But here you'll notice that this is missing. Right? There's actually a cross member that goes across to the other side. Right? They call this a drop bracket lift because this has to be cut in order for the diff to be lowered so that there's nothing in its way, because this cross member would have been in its way, right? So that's why people don't like drop bracket lifts. They always think that it's not worthy for off-roading, but that's been proven wrong. So this is the front view of the rear drop bracket on the driver's side. And so this is where the diff mount, the rear mount for the front diff, right? So there's the mount, and it's right here. And so this was just actually a piece of metal that just stuck out like that, right? And it was cracking. And so I added this piece right here, and then this piece right here to fortify that, and it hasn't had any problems since. Like the BDS skid plate is pretty beat up. I don't know, it's hard to see, but it's supposed to be straight across right there, but it's all smashed in. It's serving its job. It's doing its job. So I'm locked in the front. I've got ARB lockers with 529 nitro gears. I also did a stub shaft delete. to go into detail about that because not too many people know about that. So I wanted to explain the mod that I did for my front diff, and the only way to explain it, or the best way to explain it, is to take apart a front diff, right? And so here, got the diff. This is your driver's side. This is the CV axle that would go straight into the diff on the driver's side. On the passenger side, you've got the diff tube. And inside the diff tube, you've got the intermediate shaft. The intermediate shaft has this section here where the CV axle goes into, right? The intermediate shaft connects to the stub shaft, like that. Okay. And see how they spin separately? The stub shaft, if you notice, has the same end as a CV axle. That's because the stub shaft goes straight into the diff like a CV axle would. And you've got the intermediate shaft that goes into the stub shaft. And this collar, you have your ADD that slides it side to side so that when you're in two-wheel drive, it spins freely. When you're in four-wheel drive, the ADD collar slides into place, and now both shafts are locked. Again, two-wheel drive, collars off to the side, ADD locks both collar when you put in four-wheel drive. Right. So the problem with this is that this stub shaft is very weak. This is not a solid steel shaft. When what happens is that it breaks right here every time. You'll notice that there's a hole inside. Inside are needle bearings, right? So I figured out that the Land Cruiser 200 series doesn't have a stub shaft. It has one long intermediate shaft, right? Mine's broken because I broke this, but you get the idea. This is supposed to be one piece. It goes in there. There's no, I don't need the ADD sliding a collar back and forth. This end goes into the CV axle like that. So it's just a solid extension into the differential. So that has made it a lot stronger. And now, why didn't Toyota do that in the first place? Well, with this being solid, what happens is that your pinion, your front diff, is constantly spinning when you're driving around. So two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, doesn't matter. It's spinning. All right. It probably, that added resistance probably reduces gas mileage, right? But I'm getting 8 miles per gallon, so who cares? Yeah, so this is easy to come by. I found this on Amazon, 150 bucks ish, right? Whereas this stub shaft, you can't buy this directly from Toyota, right? You can't buy this piece alone. You have to buy a whole brand new differential in order to get this stub shaft, which is, I'm not going to spend $1,500 for that. So, and plus this thing is really hard to replace. You got to take this all apart. So, yeah, I didn't want to. I didn't want to have to keep on doing that, and I was always worried that when I go wheeling that I'm going to snap that. So now I'm less worried about it. All right, so that's what I did. Here it's all fucking jerry rigged and stuff, but I've got an ARB twin air compressor that I've attached a CPU fan that's kind of, it said it was water resistant, but it's been here for, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years maybe. What it does is when I turn the compressor on, this fan turns on, and it just blows air right into there, because heat is what kills an air compressor. And so before I installed this, I did tests. I aired up the wheels a bunch of times, aired them down a bunch of times, and with a temperature, laser temperature gauge, I was detecting that this area right here got up to 350, almost 400 degrees. But with this fan, it keeps it at 200, or just below 200 constant. So yeah, I expect this guy to last a while. One thing I wanted to point out was that my truck has a ton of cameras. So here in the bumper. Another one in the front. On the side. Down here, you can see right dead center is one on the right above the lower control arm. Right there, in the center. And then there's another one right back there. And so, you know, these guys over here, this camera allows me to see what is in front of this tire. And this one I use to just watch what is in front of this tire. So I'm able to place my wheel precisely where I want it. I use this one to see the approach of obstacles from the ground level, so that it gives me a really good perspective. And then the guy down here in the middle, I use that one when I'm pretty much just driving on the trail or when I'm cresting a hill, so that I can see what's on the other side. So if there's another vehicle approaching. These ones I like to use when there's people around, walking around by the truck, like in front of the crosswalk, because I can't see them, right? Like, you know, the truck right here is about 5 feet tall. And so when people are walking right here, I can't see them. Like, they disappear from my view. And so I like to use those cameras there to give me that visibility through that blind spot. Got another camera here. These ones got smashed out when I hit this rock wall here. Smasher Canyon. Okay, that one's dead too, but that's what it was there for. I've got some here in the rear corners, right? Then here's the stock one, which works great too. And then down below, I've got cameras right there and right there. And so what those cameras do is lets me see what's in front of that passenger rear, and here, driver rear. I've also got this camera here just to point backwards to see what's behind my driver rear when I'm backing up. This camera here actually fell off because it was actually pointing towards the front, so you could see what is about to hit your pumpkin, your front, your rear diff. So I'm able to maneuver around things. And then I got this camera here to point to what's behind my passenger rear tire. So I've got cameras everywhere. I actually have cameras inside the cab as well, so that I can see my dogs behind me, see what they're doing. So I originally bought a BeatSonic camera, front camera switcher that allows me to install a single camera to my truck. I just press this button and you know the video shows up on my head unit. I still have the stock head unit. Press that button, and so there you can see. That's not the clearest thing, but as long as I can see, right? And so I figured, why stop with just one camera? And so after a lot of trial and error, I came up with a switcher. There's a whole bunch of shit underneath this that I made to make this possible. So basically I switch this, and now I have a different view. So switch, that's the front, that's the side. All right, so let me switch through some more. Not all my cameras are working because I've hit them. So this one is the view from in the front, the center, right at the diff. And then this one is the tire view. It looks like my passenger front. So as you can see, I just switch through this and it shows the different camera angles. So that's how I'm able to wheel without too many people spotting me. I mean, of course, you know, you'll need to get spotted for you know, harder obstacles and stuff, but for the most part, I'm in the front, I spot myself. Since we're in the truck, I just wanted to show you something. So most Toyotas, I guess most trucks have a tow button, right, which prevents the truck from going to overdrive, right, when you're in two-wheel drive. So when I jumped up to 40s, I lost a lot of torque. So there's a lot of videos of me trying to bump up an obstacle. I actually tried to do Soup Bowl on the Rubicon, but I could not get it up and over the first big old rock. So that's why I didn't put that up in the videos. But anyways, I tried to figure out a way to get my torque back in. So I installed this. I created this thing, and what it does is it intercepts the signal from the four-wheel drive ECU down to the transfer case. And what it's doing is that it allows me to shift into 4 high and eventually 4 low, while the truck thinks it's still in two-wheel drive. And it's in two-wheel drive, you're allowed to use this tow haul button. Once you shift into 4 high or 4 low, this tow haul button does not work anymore. And so I used my HP Tuner's ECU tuner, programmer, whatever you want to call it, to program this tow haul button so that the throttle valve is more open once I step on the accelerator, right? And so what that does is I just barely step on the gas and it'll do the bump for me, right? So the RPMs go up high, it throws in, it injects a much more gas, and so I'm able to climb up an obstacle where I couldn't before, if that makes sense. This is a trailtoys.net rear bumper. High clearance rear bumper. You obviously have to chop the quarter panel and remove the tow hitch to install this. When I had 37s, this bumper actually was 4 inches over here. Right? So this is actually this much longer before. But obviously when I upgraded to 39s, it was rubbing like crazy on the end of this bumper, at the end of this wing. So when I upgraded to 40s, I knew that I had to get this chopped off. So 4 inches were chopped off, and this brace was relocated to the new end. It's worked great. Reminds me I should double check that, but yeah, it's pretty beefy. This is all tube, there's no plate. And that's what I like about this, because I've landed on this bumper many a times. Look at my license plate. Wheeling full size, you know that. It's all jacked up, but I like that look, you know. This bolts directly to the frame. That's where the tow hitch used to be. Right. There are holes that exist, so there's no. I didn't have to do any drilling. They are holes that are already existing, and these just bolts up onto it. I got Alcan springs, 5 inches of lift, 1 inch additional lift from these shackles, and I've got these orbit eyes, which is an option from Alcan. What are orbit eyes? These are basically like a ball inside there. I'll show you a picture. It allows the leaf spring to angle, I guess, if you want to call it, and so it flexes easier. I have the U-bolt flip kit, so my bolts go up that way instead of dangling downwards. I also put in some you can see this pieces of metal right here, this thin sheet. That is roof flashing that I cut into 2-inch strips that go all the way to the other end, right? So in between each leaf spring, I put in these strips of flashing. So basically, like this, you can get a roll of it, like 20 feet or so from Home Depot, and you just cut 2-inch strips, or I cut 2-inch strips for the length of the leaf spring, and it stopped the popping. So my leaf springs make a lot of noise. The squeaking you'll never get rid of when you're off-roading, but these guys popped, so there's like a lot of friction in between the leaf springs. So it was driving me nuts, so I had to do that. So here in the back, I've got my RCI skid. They've been working pretty good. I use it to primarily protect my third member, so I don't want the bolt on the third member to get damaged. I'm locked in the rear as well. I've got 529 nitro gears, ARB lockers. I obviously don't carry a 40-inch spare underneath the truck, and so all that empty space, I had a buddy of mine create a battery tray that I bolted to the bed of the truck, right? So you see these bolts here, they go through the bed of the truck, and it suspends this battery, this AGM battery that I have, as my secondary battery, right? And then I've got a BC-DC charger in there somewhere, a Red Arc BC-DC charger that charges up this guy. The back half of my drive shaft is steel, aftermarket. The aluminum one got bashed in, and it was just out of balance and out of whack. So I got this made nice and strong now. So, you know, I've been working it a bit. It's all rusty and shit now, but it's working pretty good. This RCI rear diff skid works great. I mean, it hangs a little low, but you know, I use it so that it saves my third member bolts. All right, so down there they don't get damaged. This actually is supposed to have a piece that goes around the third member, but that was giving me problems, so I took it off, and you know, this seems to be working fine. Just like that, it's just strapped onto the tubes, the diff tubes here. This is the transfer case diff, and then the fuel skid. So I try to connect them together so that it would just slide over, rather than having a gap here and then getting caught right on this face. But this skid plate's pretty jacked up. It's hard to see on this camera, but it's like, shit looks, it's all bent. Look at that, it's just, it's not supposed to be doing that. And then here, this Bud built transfer case skid. See how it's bent right there? That's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be straight. It's jamming up into my exhaust. Not sure if there's a hole there. So this is my transmission pan. I surprisingly haven't had to use a skid plate here. I mean, I have it, but I've never ever touched this wheeling, and you know, I'm only going to put a skid plate so that I can cover these guys, right, from getting stolen. Surprised they haven't gotten stolen yet. So I've got these DeMello rock crusher sliders. They are great. I put this tape on, grip tape right there. me stay on the slider without falling off. But they did bend, right? So kind of like right here towards the front, you could see that it gradually goes upwards. That's inherently an issue with all Tundra sliders, because if you look at here, this part is what connects to the frame, but then you've got this whole, 18 inches at least of unsupported sliders. So I guess on my next truck, I'm gonna figure out a way to brace this onto the frame back there somehow. Same thing with the rear. Look at this. This is like 2 feet of unbraced sliders, right? So I'm gonna need to figure out how to brace this end onto the frame on the new truck. So my sliders were welded on. I actually started trying to bolt them on, but that was a fucking bitch. This was from a tree. Took out my whole door, actually. If you saw my sour grass trail, my last one, that one. This one is, I don't know where that one's from. Got a shitload of dents. I got this from when I rolled over, or when the truck rolled over, not me. All right. This one in Rubicon. Show a video of that.
Door!
This one here, my tire launched off. I lost this wheel when I was going to Arizona. Not this, oh actually it is this wheel. Yeah, I was driving like 75 miles an hour, and then my truck just went sideways like this, and I'm skidding on the freeway, and I see my tire just launch up in the air. And I'm like, what the fuck? But that's, I'll throw some videos of that as well. The aftermath, not the wheel launching thing. So I've been getting asked, what does it take to put 40s on a truck? Well, you're gonna need high clearance front bumpers, because you need to move your camber more positive, so it moves the tire forward, so that it's not rubbing up the backside over here. And so you're gonna need this clearance there. I guess I trimmed this part of the fender. That's optional. Here you need a high clearance rear bumper as well. As I said earlier, this has to be really short right there. So this bumper, the wing used to be like that long, and then I cut 4 inches off just so that this wheel can flex up and down. And I did a lot of trimming right there, here, and right there. These are 0 offset, so I haven't had any problems rubbing up in the wheel well. That's not an issue for me. These wider tires will rub on the inside, so a body mount chop is likely necessary. My other set of 40s that I had, I didn't have any problems rubbing on the inside during full lock, so it's just that these tires are a lot wider. And then if you're gonna wheel and you're gonna have front lockers, you're gonna have to do that upgrade that I did and put in that solid intermediate shaft, because you're gonna be breaking shit left and right. RCV axles, that you're gonna need as well, because the OEMs are decent, but anything cheaper than OEM, you'll just break them too easily. You'll want to beef up your tie rod ends. The tie rod ends, I don't think you need to do the inner tie rod, the inner ends, whatever.